About 90 days ago, I started this little experiment. A shrimp breeding tank with a mix of colors I've always wanted to try. The idea was simple. What happens if you crossbreed different types of Neocaridina shrimp? The rumor on the internet is that when you crossbreed shrimp colors, you end up with a brown, boring offspring. But after watching this tank for weeks now, I'm starting to think that this might not be true. Let's explore together. The tank setup was simple. A small planted aquarium with plenty of plants, biofilm and hardscape. I kept it heated, around 25 degrees Celsius, to simulate natural conditions. In the beginning, the shrimp seemed calm. The cherries and chocolates stayed mostly near the bottom, while the Orange Sakuras preferred the moss-covered roots and floating plants. For the first few weeks, I didn't see much breeding activity. Neocaridina shrimp eggs usually take 20 to 40 days to hatch. This heavily depends on the temperature and other factors. So, patience was key. I continued feeding once or even twice a day, using crushed pond flakes that I grind with my fingertips until they turn into fine powder. These pond flakes are usually used for feeding goldfish, but they are also perfectly suitable for Neocaridina shrimp because they have a relatively high protein content. By grinding the pond flakes, even the smallest shrimp can access food that settles in between leaves and substrate cracks. And it's very cheap food, but high in protein. And the shrimp absolutely love it. Of course, sometimes I also feed them other food, but this is the main staple for my Neocaridina shrimp. After 36 days, my heavy feeding strategy had its first side effect. The entire tank exploded with life. Biofilm, algae and microorganisms. Everything was thriving. Some people might panic seeing that much algae, but I saw opportunity. Biofilm is exactly what baby shrimp feed on in their first few days, and it creates a self-sustaining ecosystem that doesn't need constant intervention. During this phase, no fry had hatched yet, which made sense, as the eggs were likely still developing. But behind the scenes, genetics were mixing, and within another month, the first new generation appeared. After around 60 days, tiny shrimp fry started to appear everywhere. And today, around 90 days later, I can finally show you the results. What you see here are the offspring of those different parents, and they look nothing like them. There are three major color patterns in this new generation: light yellow, light red, and almost completely translucent shrimp. None of them resemble the bright red cherries, the dark chocolates, or the orange sakuras I started with. The genetics of Neocaridina davidi are complex, and when you cross color morphs, the offspring often revert closer to the wild coloration. In my case, it seems as if the orange pigment has disappeared completely. Red only remains as a faint tint, and the dark brown genes seem to have diluted into light beige or natural brown tones. Interestingly, the original adults are still in the tank and continue breeding, which means the next generation might bring even more variation. Will we ever see red or orange again? Probably not, but that's part of the beauty of this experiment. This small project showed me that breeding shrimp isn't like mixing paint. You can't just combine red and black and expect chocolate shrimp to appear. Genetics have their own mysterious rules. What I find most interesting is how the population reaches balance. The algae and biofilm stabilized, baby shrimp found enough food, and the adult shrimp adjusted the territories. Over time, the tank has become a tiny ecosystem. Not fully self-sustaining, but very diverse and unpredictable. And honestly, that's exactly what I love about this hobby. And just look at the color varieties. If you look at them next to each other, they look absolutely stunning. For me personally, I prefer the natural coloration that these shrimp have, and also the way that the eggs in the relatively young shrimp shine through their exoskeleton. Makes it very, very interesting for me, and it's more interesting than these artificially bred colors, for instance from blue dream shrimp or also from red cherry shrimp. So, after 90 days, this is where the experiment stands. A tank full of life, filled with relatively pale colors that nature decided to create on her own terms. I'll continue observing this colony, and maybe, in a few months, we'll revisit and to see how the genetics evolve further. And if you enjoyed this little journey, please give the video a like and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow. If you'd like to see how my ecosystem tank developed over 330 days, check out the video on the right hand side. Or if you want to see how I built my South America tank with Apistogramma cichlids, glow light tetras and many more species, then click on the video on the left hand side. Thanks for watching and see you guys in the next one.